Welcome. This is called Love and Friendship.
Love and friendship.
Yes, I have an
all right.
extremely loving friend. We're going to be talking about a therapy system, really. Is that what we call it?
Yeah, a model we can call
A
it.
therapy model, which I've been doing for 13 years, and you can see how well it's worked for me. And
He's perfect now.
Pamela is a therapist.
I am.
We once did a television show many years ago called Multi-Personalities and what they can do for you and you and you and you. We don't know what we'll call this yet.
Right.
But we're going to look at internal family systems, which attempts to describe what's going on inside us,
That's right.
including our spiritual nature.
Yes.
It's not just
To some extent, that's
yes,
right.
not
Absolutely.
just the psychological. So we're lucky to have Pamela, who works with multi-personalities. That's what attracted me to her. And I don't know which me was attracted, however.
That's a good question.
But she's now going to give us some of the basic, the essential tools or concepts in internal family systems, and then we'll talk about them.
Okay, well, first of all, we have to give attribution to Richard Schwartz, who kind of created this model out of a lot of different strands and themes in psychotherapy over the years. But he was the one who coined the term internal family systems. And he was the first, or not the first, but he was one of the people to talk about our personality being multiple. And it's kind of important to make a distinction because people over years, and probably sometimes still now, think of multiple personalities as Sybil, of somebody who, gets up one morning as Michael and then comes to the party as Jim or Josephine.
Wow,
And
sounds exciting.
That's actually something that is called, at the far end of that spectrum, dissociative identity disorder.
Much like multiple personality. I'd much rather
Well,
be
it's-
a multiple
Yeah,
personality.
you'd like
than a
the
dissociative, what is it?
dissociative identity disorder. So
Dissociative.
DID is what it's called
Did.
in the trade.
Wow, you
But
suffer.
that's not what we're talking about.
Do you suffer from did?
So we're not talking about that. We're just talking about the natural multiplicity that we all have. And so that would mean like everybody would hear parts language. And some novels, you see it more than others. I was really struck when I reread Anna Karenina that there were so many parts of the main characters. But you would know this if you're viewing this tape. You would think like a part of me wants to go to the movie right now, and a part of me wants to watch the tape.
Thank you for that part.
And
Thank you.
Michael loves that. I love that. Maybe another part wants to take a nap. Now,
Whoops, yes, gee.
that's an ordinary situation.
Challenging.
But in therapy, sometimes people will experience themselves as monoliths. So somebody could come to a therapist, and maybe you have, or maybe I have, and say, I'm anxious, or I'm really depressed.
Yep, I can identify with all of these.
Yeah, and that sense of being a monolith. And of course, nobody who is anxious or depressed or any other state is that state wholly. Like, are you ever, tired instead of anxious? Or are you ever happy when you see the sunshine?
Yes.
So we are made up of various parts.
Now, but why call them parts? Because most people wouldn't say, they would say part of me.
Part of me. And that's a very common phrase. So let's just
Yeah, you
let's
don't-
just breathe that in. Oh, part of me. Dr. Schwartz sort of set this up in a way of understanding people. So that we're born and we are spontaneous and lively and hungry and touch things and explore. And we live in wonder. And then life happens to us. And Dick Schwartz would say we become burdened by experiences, hurts, beliefs about ourselves, beliefs about the world. And when that happens, we can't just be in that raw, vulnerable state.
Happy vulnerable state, yes.
That but that's given.
Yeah.
That comes with
Yeah.
with the merchandise. It's a happy, vulnerable state. But then when we get burdened or hurt, constrained, as well as getting those burdens, we get protectors to help us.
And the burden would be, what would be an example if I,
Well,
theoretically, my mother did say that the happiest time of her life was when she was pregnant with me.
the happiest time. Well, that's a really good thing to hear.
Yeah, it's a little sad for the rest of her life,
Right,
but anyway.
the rest of her life. But let's say that, do you think your mom might have ever yelled at you when you were a little kid?
That was her basic, her default
Okay.
way of communication.
So she might have even said critical things
Uh,
to you
she
in
might
a
have
yelling way?
Maybe once, never. Yes, or probably very many. Yes.
Okay.
She was
So
good at that.
let's say that hurt a vulnerable, open part of you. And it got burdened, it got sad.
So if a part of me wants to love, right?
Mm-hmm.
Wants to, coochie coochie coo, and I get slapped.
Yeah.
So what happens? So
happens?
we're saying that coochie coochie coo part.
It gets protected. It gets burdened
Yeah,
and hurt, but then it gets protected.
They had a video of Dr. Watson
Oh, really?
when we were born. I think you're not.
No, I'm about the same age.
Yes. So Dr. Watson was the reigning child psychologist.
Right.
This is before Dr. Spock. And Dr. Watson said, don't hold the child.
Right.
Only feed it at the end of 4
Intervals,
hours.
Right.
And Dr. Watson proudly showed, on film, proudly, he could take a little girl of about 2
Yeah.
who saw a pussycat, and loved it, of course,
Yeah.
nice pussy.
Yeah.
And then he rang, after she saw the pussycat, she was happy, he rang an extremely unpleasant
Harsh.
sound.
This is terrible.
And the girl didn't like the sound, and he was proudly showed, after a few experiences like this, she could see the pussycat and be in terror.
That's a very terrible thing.
And that's what you're saying.
Yeah,
right?
I'm saying she both got wounded by the bad sound, but then her protectors came in, and actually one protective move is freeze, and so it was like what you were describing just then, just non-verbally, was kind of a freeze response. So our protectors can be in fight or flight, they can be in freeze, and they can just be protectors that we know about in ordinary life, which is like we may know somebody who's like very closed mouth, doesn't say much about their vulnerability, so they're kind of avoidant of connection or contact. Well, that avoidance is a protector.
Also. So the burden, the poor little girl, instead of being happy when she sees a kitty cat, is that
that's a kind of freeze response, which is a protector of
and that is a burden she's carrying with her primal enjoyment
of life, right?
Of cats. So then whenever she sees the cat, the burden comes to her.
Right, and the protector tries to help her,
And
not do anything.
And the freezing.
Right.
So what is actually the burden?
So the burden might be if you interview that little girl inside her. Let's say she's grown up and she's 37 right now.
Yes.
And you're in therapy with her and you find that little girl and she says that the world is really scary.
Yep.
The protector says, I have to freeze her because she needs that.
Because otherwise those sounds are going to tell her.
Yeah, and then if we got the protector to stand back and we talk to the little girl, she'd say it's scary.
And that scariness is the burden.
The scariness is the burden.
For that.
Yeah, thank you for helping me, tease that out.
Yeah, so the scary, and then if we really get good at working through that, how do we work through that burden?
Well, let's just say there are 2 kinds of protectors. There's managers who sort of run our lives, and somebody can have managers that are extreme. So it's good to have managers like to pay your bills, but if the managers get over anxious or critical, like you're not doing enough or you're not doing it right, then they're kind of extreme protectors, and we need to help them.
So let's focus on this little girl again.
Okay, so she's
freezing is managing, right?
Right, that's helping her manage.
Manage.
But what if she were to grow up to be a very particular perfectionist kind of person. Have a manager who's trying to get everything right.
And not have any animals in the house.
Right, not have anything like that ever happen again.
Yeah.
So that manager would be a protector of hers. But there are also protectors that Dr. Schwartz calls firefighters. And they are not so careful as the managers. They are really trying to fight or flee. So fleeing usually is an avoidance, and it takes the form of all kinds of addictions, any addiction you could name.
So she's avoiding kitty cats again?
Avoiding
or any kind
inner
of
pain.
any kind of affection and interaction.
Yeah, and the pain
Might
that
frighten
comes,
her.
and you can also
So
medicate
she doesn't
pain.
might not want to touch people
She might not. But
because it might be too painful.
in other times, it
And
might
that
just
would be considered a fire.
a firefighter, that avoidance.
Don't touch me.
Right. That's not a manager. That's a firefighter.
That's a
Right.
firefighter. And the manager might just be in situations where.
It's just kind of ultra managing things, and,
Oh.
and that actually evokes self-criticism.
Because
criticism
why
of
aren't I
others,
more open to the kitty cats?
or why aren't I
Or
doing more
affection.
paperwork?
Or affection, yes.
Why haven't I earned enough degrees? Or
Oh,
You
so
know,
I saw
managers
all
really
of that.
kind
So
of-
that bird, the initial burden, and the burden was being scared.
yeah,
That desire to just touch, and so
Yeah.
touching became something. Got burdened with fear. Right?
yeah, burdened with fear.
Touching got burdened with fear, and then
She had a freeze response.
yes, and then in order to not have that unpleasant feeling, she might go into a nunnery.
Oh, well, that's
Yeah.
that, with most of the people we know, they aren't in nunneries.
Say,
But that can
tell me,
happen.
tell me. Oh, yeah, but she might be really careful about
She might
touching
really
people.
avoid everything. Yeah,
Yes.
that would be very extreme.
Eyes or not be
Right.
pain when even someone hugging her could be painful.
It could be. So you're talking about what could be a really, really extreme effect of something.
Yes, my
like
own
that.
experience actually.
Uh,
But it's easy to talk about, like our president talking about his own experiences and projecting it on everybody else. Okay, so I understand the initial burden, protecting, and then the two kind of protectors, the managers who said,
Mhm.
okay, really be careful if you're in a
Right,
situation
yeah, be
where
really
someone's
careful.
going to hug you and you don't want it. And the firefighter might be, I think I'm going to read and be a reader and discuss things from my mind.
I'm going
Because-
to avoid, right?
Because touching is,
Right.
touching
Touching and
people
feeling are out.
out,
Right.
yes.
Yeah.
they're
So-
really beneath me.
So you could be reading, which is an avoidant.
So we have them all then. We have burden, two kinds of managers, fighters
Two
and
kinds
then
of protectors.
two kinds of protectors.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Anytime, Michael.
Managers
That's
and
what I'm
firefighters. And then we left out the juiciest
We
part.
left out, how do we get back to the garden? How do
Yes,
we ever
yes.
get back to a feeling state of joy and engagement with the world? How do we ever do that with all these protectors?
And we can, we're witness, you're looking at
Finished work.
works in progress, but
Works in progress.
yes, but we've learned some of these.
So,
It only took us, 50 years or so. We cannot rush the healing process.
no, you can't rush it. But so we're still talking about the IFS model
Yes.
of Dr. Schwartz, and so he posited that there was something that he called self and self energy. That I think the characteristic of it that I like is compassion, and that is a place inside everyone where they can be compassionate towards the protection and the suffering of their own aspects or parts.
Wow.
So
how in this particular example
Mhm.
of the little girl and the kitty cat, when she gets in touch with herself,
mhm.
her compassionate
Let's say
self,
she's an adult now, right?
Yes.
Yes, and she's maybe in therapy.
yes, or a therapist, who knows?
Could
And
be. That happens.
yes, and she gets in touch with her what does that feel like, her compassionate self?
So I would just speak really from my own experience of what that is in me, and then you can speak about your experience, because I don't think this is a very easy thing to talk about abstractly. So I think my experience, I often talk to clients about their heart opening to themselves or to their parts. And so that my experience is that a kind of a feeling of expansion and loving kindness. And that feels like an energy that kind of rolls forward. And that is healing. If it's inner to you, to yourself, or outer to somebody else. But this model says, with help, you can heal yourself with your own self-energy.
Yes, it's very good. It doesn't necessarily, it doesn't require you to go to a therapist, actually.
If you
If you can learn it.
it's
It wants
easier.
you to be your own.
Right.
Well, I feel like crying now that you describe it.
Mm.
So you could even put your hand on your heart.
Yeah. Yeah.
And discover, if you're this little girl, oh my, I don't have to run away from this affectionate
Right.
interaction.
You might have to do
I've never experienced it before, but I have some feelings I've been hiding from
Mm-hmm.
or protecting myself
Yeah.
from. You know, with my heart or my intellectual
Mm-hmm.
in the head. Who would have known? Wow, I have a heart like the
Like the Tin Woodman.
Tin Woodman.
Isn't he the one that thought he didn't have a heart?
Yes, and the lion. What did the lion?
The lion thought he lacked courage, but he was really courageous. And so we have these internal resources. That's a really great, kind of look into Oz, because they all had those internal resources that that internal family system says we all have.
And they didn't know.
They didn't know.
So that would be great to even tell some. And so once we discover compassion,
Right. So,
now internal family system says this isn't just another part
right.
of us.
That's right.
We might say, in regular human language,
Right.
that, oh, a part of me really feels compassionate for
Mhm.
myself or for you.
Mm-hmm.
So, but
But
we'll,
the model wouldn't say that.
the model, we're gonna stick with the model for this half hour.
Okay.
We have 10 more minutes, and then the next half hour,
We
stay
can go
tuned.
beyond.
We're going to explore how true this model is,
Okay.
or the
And
ways,
where it fits and where it doesn't.
or the ways to even have it grow beyond where it is
Sure.
now. Because Dick Schwartz is actually a very growing thinker.
Right. Good. That sounds
So-
good to me.
So the little girl feels she might cry when she discovers, oh my, I've been hiding from touching people for so long,
Yeah.
and it's so nice.
Mm.
Wow, doesn't have to be.
No.
Now, how does she
That's
move
so-
from the pain, that's that, that big bell
Right.
that she hears whenever anyone touches her? Ah! How does she go from there to saying, hey, maybe it would be nice if it was just for maybe a moment if we touched?
Mm-hmm.
How does she get there?
Well, I do think it does help to have a therapist help you unfold this inside yourself. And the first thing is that there are lots of theories and actually almost common sense thoughts that some of our protectors are bad. You know, like what if I have an avoidant part that keeps me from people? I might have a critic that thinks that avoidant part is bad.
Yes, little girl, I'm totally in my head. I am a statistics teacher, and I love. Actually, I've learned to hate statistics, but at least it's safe.
But you might have an internal critic saying, "Why are you so avoidant? Why do you ever go out? Somebody just asked you to a party, but you said no. You said you had too much work to do.
Yeah.
What's wrong with you?
Yes. So
Other people go out.
there's a real dramatic
So-
struggle. There's your
Yeah.
protector and
There's-
your critic.
Well, and they're both called protectors. So the critic is a manager,
Yeah.
and the protector, the avoidant one, is a firefighter, and they often
Now,
hate up
what
on
is
each
the
other.
difference between a manager and a firefighter?
A manager tries to get things right and done. And
Oh, so the manager of this little girl wants to get her statistics.
right, she should work harder.
Work harder.
Right, and then the critic actually might say, why is critics can be critics of managers or firefighters.
They're very
basically,
flexible, yeah.
most people walk around feeling like at least part of who they are is wrong. Wouldn't you say that?
I've written poems. One of them is called Nobody's Perfect. Stranger to the human race, I'm always losing face.
Oh,
I'm baser than the base, a disgrace to be erased.
oh, that's perfect, Michael. That's how we all feel inside at some moment to some extent, right? I'm no good, or this part of me is no good. And so when we start the healing process, we appreciate all of our protectors rather than putting them down.
Right, because our little girl was a statistician,
Mm-hmm.
and she was able to be top in her field, and
Right.
all her students loved her, and so it did a lot of good for her.
And we will find that always that all of our protectors have done a lot of good for us because they've got us through. And that isn't so easy.
No,
To get through
working
your
miracles.
own childhood.
Well, how do you handle
Right.
it if you have this esteemed psychologist banging on shrill, traumatic sounding bells anytime you saw a kitty cat? Wow,
But
that's hard.
not only that, but many of us had childhoods that were not ideal. I hate to tell you.
No, no. This is still children can still be watching this. This is only
You don't think we should say this out on television?
yes. This is Boston after all.
So given that we're even going to say it again, that not everyone and many of us didn't have an ideal childhood, then we're going to have wounds and we're going to have protectors and we're probably going to have self-criticism. So it's really a new move to open up appreciation for the protectors that got us through. Whether they made us, super nerdy, or they gave us a bottle to drink, here's some alcohol, just go away from that
Yes.
pain. Whatever they did for us,
Become an intellectual.
they become an intellectual,
Yes.
study world religions.
Become a president.
Right. Oh no, don't go there. But they did get us through, and appreciating our protectors is an amazing moment in therapy, in my experience, is that they just have felt so alone and so
Because they've been
maligned,
so criticized.
so criticized, right.
Well, some part of us might have been proud. I'm a statistician.
Right.
I'm really good at numbers, and so some
Well,
part. And
and
you might not even hear the critic for a
But
while.
managers tend to get more accolades than firefighters, but they still get criticized because they're extreme.
And the manager is a critic, right?
Yes, so a critic will
Trying
criticize
to
the
manage
manager.
it, get you to work harder.
Yeah.
We're not working harder enough.
And so to really appreciate the positive intention of our protectors starts a healing process. It just starts unfolding.
Because in some ways our psyche did these things
Our psyche
in
did these
order
on
to-
purpose and for a good
in
reason.
order to, almost like an
Right,
immune system,
Right, that's right.
to help us get
Oh, that's
by.
a really good, I love you saying that.
Good going,
Immune
psyche.
system.
Good
Yeah,
going.
good going.
Yes,
Thank you
even
so
if I've
much.
never touched anybody. Good
Yeah.
going. It's never too late to reach out your hand. Look,
That's
see,
right.
look, we can do this. Yes, touching is good.
So as protectors start to feel like they're not alone, they're being met, let's say by the therapist's self-energy, and then a little bit later on by the client's own appreciation, they start to relax and they kind of start loosening their hold on our systems. They start feeling it maybe it's a little safer than I thought.
I'm not all bad.
I'm not all bad. I'm not even bad.
I'm
They're
not
appreciating
even
me.
bad.
They're appreciating me.
I've done a good job. I'm here. It hasn't been easy.
It hasn't been easy, and this is for even extreme parts, like eating disordered parts.
Yes.
At
At least they fed us.
Right.
At least without that eating disorder, I might have starved to death.
Or I did try to starve to death, but it was
And
all for the cause of not feeling the pain. So.
So this therapy can make you start feeling pain.
Yes.
Ooh. We saved this to the last, to
Yeah,
the
we
first part of
saved
it.
it to the last.
Yeah, you thought we might have been
Well, that's
getting
the first
into it.
part,
We're
right.
sorry to let you know. So all that trauma of hearing that bell sound,
Yeah.
and all that did to you, to distort you, to boot,
Right. So people really go towards that very carefully and slowly, because we don't want to just
We don't want, we can't
open
get
a box
we
and
can't
have
get
it
a
pop out.
quick
Right.
fix.
Right.
Can't
no,
just fix
no
it.
quick fix.
Watch this show and you'll
And
be
then,
live
yeah.
happily ever after.
That would be nice to say, wouldn't it?
No.
But it would be a lie.
Oh, but and lying.
Sorry. Lying is wrong.
And we know that in the critic.
Yeah.
Lying is wrong.
Can't
No.
lie. We have to say the truth. It does take a while for all that compassion, for that appreciation, for that you are not bad, to get all the way down to those original traumas.
So I'd love to. Oh, but you're going to stay tuned. We have 1 minute to go.
Oh, we do.
But we're going to be back for another half hour to just begin to discover how, when we discover compassion, just simply maybe holding our heart.
Yeah, and appreciating who we are on all levels.
Now, compassion means just I feel your pain, right?
Well, that's what it means literally, right?
I feel with you.
Yeah, I feel with you. So I'm
Compassion.
with you, right. So, and I would say it sort of in my own way, which would be my heart is opening to you.
Oh, that's much more beautiful.
Yeah, but that's just how I experience it in my own.
My heart is opening, and for those of us who discover we have a heart, my heart is opening to you, and the you could be me.
Yes,
For starters.
and you could be saying that to your own self, or to
Okay.
your own managers,
Wow.
or your own
And so we
firefighters.
discover new powers. We will be back in 3 minutes to find out what happens when our heart opens.